So we're here to discuss yesterday's situation at the stadium, and Under Sheriff Bill Cooley, joined by Chiefs Britt Solero, Granville, and Kearney, Sheriff John Garcia, Ryan Rogers, and Matt Kreipel, our Air One crew. So yesterday, just before the game started, ECC security officers were flagged down by a concerned citizen to address a person that appeared to be in distress. So they encountered this individual, and when they approached him, he was naked and he was kind of covered in human excrement. And as they approached him, he began to run towards the excavated area where the new stadium's going. So they followed him, and when he closed in on the fence that encompasses that area, he climbed or scaled a 10-foot fence and got to the other side of the fence, and then began to run towards the excavated area, and it's sort of shelved or tiered. As he was running, he fell down and tumbled down to the first tier, first level. He got up and then began to run again, and then tumbled down once again to the bottom of the excavated area. At that point, the Erie County Sheriff's Office were alerted to the situation, and EMS was alerted, and the Windham volunteer firefighters that covered that area also were alerted. I think Ryan Rogers, our pilot at Air One, was the first sheriff's officer to spot the individual at the bottom of the excavated area.
Yes, sir.
And when they first saw him, they were concerned with his welfare. They weren't sure of what his condition was, and as they began to descend down into the excavated area, then you saw him move, and he gets up, and he runs, and then he falls down again. So at that point, they abandoned their idea to land down in there and directed deputies that were up on Abbott Road to this location. When our deputies encountered this individual, they noticed he was in some medical distress, and our deputies, along with EMS and the volunteer firefighters, made a determination to send him to the hospital for evaluation. So he was transported to ECMC and was treated for myriad injuries, and at a certain point in time, he was then transferred from ECMC to Buffalo General. He's a 29-year-old male, and during the interview that occurred in the new construction site, he made mention that he was under the influence or had taken cocaine, LSD, and marijuana. So it was unclear whether or not this was the resultant consequence of being intoxicated or from the two falls that he took. But at that point, he was in the hospital, and charges were laid against him for criminal trespass, but he was never really taken into custody. He was just released on an appearance ticket. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sheriff John Garcia.
Thank you, Under Sheriff. Thanks, Bill. So I just wanted to highlight, yesterday's great game. We had 68,000 people. It was a sellout crowd. We had one arrest during the game, and that happened after the game, where an individual on his way out was shoving others, so he got charged with harassment. And then we had 8 ejections. It was probably, in our opinion, the best behaved crowd that we've seen since our administration has been in place. Now, the incident that occurred at ECC, like the undersheriff said, we were made aware of by ECC Security. ECC Security does the exterior perimeter security of that site. It's fenced in, and inside that construction site, you have a private security company. So ECC on the outside, private security firm on the inside, fenced in area. There's some video that's out there in the public that shows this individual, like the undersheriff said, just covered in feces and urine and so forth, and members of the public are taking a video of him. He's stripping himself of his clothes. He climbs over naked. He eventually falls into the pit. At that point, Air One, which I keep on highlighting Air One, our eye in the sky, what they do is they monitor all the lots. And if they get any information from a citizen or whomever that there's an issue in a lot, a fight, or, they respond. Well, when they responded, they see this individual and they think, he's in distress, which he is. However, this individual proceeds to give them a peace sign with one hand and simulates masturbation with his other hand. So obviously, there's some kind of drugs involved, some mental illness. After interviewing this individual, we find out he took acid, LSD, cocaine, marijuana, and he was drinking. He never made it into the game. The individuals that attended the game with him just abandoned him. So, you know, this happened about 12:18, the first call. We responded immediately with Air One. He was located, transported to the hospital, and like the undersheriff said, he never came into our custody. We gave him a parent's ticket there. Ambulance transported him immediately to Buffalo General. ECMC.
ECMC then Buffalo General.
Now he's at Buffalo General. We're unsure of what his status is right now. He did have a cut above his, on his forehead and so forth. But, you know, since it's a private matter and, you know, in HIPAA, we have no information on that. So I wanted to say thank you again to you gentlemen. They do a fantastic job locating this individual, and it's just a working relationship what we have with our public and our partners, be it ECC Security and the security company and so forth, the state troopers. And we really had a wonderful crowd, but we had this isolated incident. I wanted to call this press conference because I know there was some questions regarding, you know, were there other people that were injured? Nobody else was injured. Nobody else made it onto this site. There's everything that we could attempt to prevent. We always try to stay 4 or 5 plays ahead because our job is to ensure that incidents like that don't occur. But when somebody takes LSD and cocaine and marijuana and they're drinking, I mean, from running into traffic to scaling a 10-foot fence, we can't prevent everything. But I'll take any questions anyone may have.
Do you have any idea how, you said he had run along, he kind of fell into the pit, and the way they're digging it is kind of tiered, fell again? And how many feet down he fell? And if you could talk about getting him out of there, that was difficult.
Yeah, I can shed some light on that. So there's different areas of that excavation site where you can actually drive vehicles down into. So they were able to get down there and get them loaded up on a gurney and then into an ambulance for transport.
So you didn't need to put ladders down like the plate below or something like that?
No, it's actually drivable. I suspect they get their, you know, earth movers and that down into that area. What would you estimate the depth at, Ryan?
I would say approximately 30 to
30 feet? Like below grade?
Yes, sir.
In the parking lot?
30.
Yeah, so if it was tiered, maybe he tumbled down about 15 feet, and it's kind of jagged. It's, you know, shale, and then got up and ran again and probably fell another 15 feet. I'm sorry?
Lucky he didn't break his neck.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
So,
Heck of a
you know,
tumble.
David, and great question. So, and that's what I was wondering myself, not being on the scene, is how the men and women rescued him. And I just want to say thank you to Wyndham Volunteer Fire Company and AMR and our deputies and so forth. But yeah, you're able to drive down there, and he was, you know, but if we would have never found him, that, you know, that's my concern. And you remember years ago with an individual that, you know, fell into a body of water and drowned. So, you know, and that's the tool. I keep on saying the tool with Air One, having that eye in the sky and really seeing everything that's going on. And when there's a call that comes out, be it a fight, be it a person having a medical emergency, we could pinpoint that area and have our people respond immediately, our, you know, the ambulance, so forth. And I'll tell you, they got to him immediately. They got him out of there to the hospital right away, and, you know, we'll see what happens, but, yeah.
I know this was an isolated incident, but with the construction happening and, you know, obviously with tailgating, we know people are drinking, do you think there's going to be any security closer around just in case, you know, no one does this again? Or
Yeah, so great question. I had the same question. You know, we always assess the after-action report on how to get better with traffic, with incidents like this. And my question was, how do you have a construction site there? You have private security on the inside, ECC security on the outside, and how does a person, you know, scale this? Well, by the time they saw him, right, we think about it afterwards, but when you see a naked individual running what are your thoughts, right? Next thing you know, he's climbing this fence. He's a big kid, 6'4", you know? He scaled that fence right up, and, you know, he jumped over on the other side. Next thing you know, he's running towards the pit. By the time ECC security got behind him, now this individual is falling, tumbling down into the pit. It happened so quickly. And, you know, it's a large site, and you can't have people every 6 feet. And you never anticipate something like this happening. But, you know, we're going to look at it and get better and work with our partners and give them some advice on to getting better. And then there's people inside the site, the private security people. And, you know, people may ask, where were they? Well, it's a giant site. Do they?
Yeah. There's also signage on the exterior of the fence, you know, alert people to.
For a normal person, I should have said it that way, but when you're taking LSD and cocaine and marijuana, you're going to not read the signs. You're not going to read any. You wouldn't be in a porta potty jumping inside it, covering yourself with human excrement. You wouldn't be doing that. This is a very isolated issue, but, you know, Sarah?
How long did it take to get him, I guess, out of that situation?
So the call came out at 12:18, and he was being looked after at 12:38. So about 20 minutes, you know, get down there, assessing them and so forth, and then getting them right out. But the whole situation, him walking around, this is what we're trying to find out. Where was he? You know, we want to ask the public if they have any videos, and there's videos out there already. They show him next to the porta potty taking his clothes off. They were full of human excrement. Sorry to WBN, favorite radio station, by the way. You know, they show him, you know, taking his clothes off, and people are saying, why is he covered in, you know, human excrement and so forth? There were no calls at that time, you know, but eventually the first mention of this individual to the Erie County Sheriff's Office was from ECC Security. So there was no 911 call. And, but people were watching him take his clothes off and so forth. And, you know.
So is the answer, Sheriff, to the question that might come up was, what more are they planning to do to secure this site during game days? Is the answer, there's not much more we can do, but for somebody who is maybe not in their right mind, bound and determined to go across that fence?
David, we could have double, triple the amount of law enforcement present. And I got to say, I was talking to Chief Carney, and he mentioned this yesterday. So many people came up to our deputies, including the chief, and they said before and after the game, thank you for being here. Because it was really a great crowd. 8 ejections and 1 arrest after the game on an opening day sellout crowd. And we were really impressed by the behavior of the fans. And I think it makes a difference when you see uniformed sheriff's deputies that are trained in de-escalation. And, you know, people are drinking, Dave. But this is beyond drinking. This is, you know, LSD. You know, people have done, obviously, you know, we know people have done horrible things to themselves and others, you know, with drugs like this. And then cocaine and alcohol. You know, I would think that the people that attended the game with him, and he was in that condition, should have been responsible enough to call us and say, you know, the gentleman we're with is in a really bad place right now, and he needs medical attention. Yet they went to the game, and he wandered around, ended up in a porta potty, covered himself with the chemicals from the porta potty, from everything else, scaled a 10-foot fence naked, jumped into a pit, gave the peace sign and simulated masturbation. I mean, how could we prevent that, David? I don't know. You know, I try to stay ahead of everything, and it bothers me that you have this great event with a sellout crowd and a well-behaved crowd and a great game, beautiful day, and one incident like this, and here we are talking about this instead of talking about the sellout crowd that behaved so well, and yeah. And there's so many other people that go to the parking lots and view the game, and they don't go into the game. They view it from the, you know, their TVs in the parking lot, and there were 0 incidents. But you have a guy on LSD, we can't prevent that.
Were there physical injuries, or was it just to take him for a psych eval in the hospital?
I'm sorry, sir?
Was it physical injuries as well, or was he just for a psych eval?
No, he had physical injuries.
Oh, you know,
Yeah, he had a cut above his forehead, he had some scrapes and so forth, and then the fact that he took LSD and cocaine and marijuana and alcohol, you got uppers, you got downers, you have, mind-altering drugs, so we wanted to make sure that he went straight to the hospital. He just got an appearance ticket to appear in court, Orchard Park?
Yeah.
Town court, yeah. So, just a criminal trespass, and our concern at that time, sir, is that, his well-being. So, off to the,
Who did he give the peace sign to? Was it the?
I'm sorry?
Air One? Who did he give the peace sign to? Was it Air One, did you say? Or the security?
oh, yeah. So Air One was hovering, he's laying in this pit. They're concerned about his well-being, and he got out of the pit, and he gave a peace sign with one hand and simulated masturbation with the other hand. So, they're thinking, obviously, intoxicated person, which in fact it was, but also intoxicated due to some of the drugs that he took. That is not a normal behavior from anyone, I would hope.
Our flight crew initially, when they first spotted him, you weren't sure if he was unconscious or expired,
Correct.
and they made a determination to try to land, and as they were descending into that area, then he gets up. Right.
Yes, sir.
So at which point it was, didn't make any sense to land down there. And at that point, our Air One crew directed our deputies on the ground to the area. So.
Thank you very much.